Like let's make a pact right now.
All right,
3
ready,
of us.
everybody?
Okay, hands in.
Oh, but I need to know what the pact is first.
No, hands in first.
Pact
It's a
101.
trust pact.
All right.
It's a trust pact.
Jordan,
you gotta put your hand
get
in.
handsy.
Hand
Get
in.
handsy.
All right.
You gonna go big hand or small hand?
This is episode 4 of the Still Single podcast. We are gonna make the best fucking episode of podcast history right now, and we will not hit stop record once. Okay.
Pact.
Boom.
Pact.
Okay, so I'm gonna jump in this is what I was thinking about, and I want to hear your guys' thoughts, because what keeps playing in my head a lot is about short-term relationships versus long-term relationships, and the main thing really with that is there is this episode with Dan Savage from the Monica and Jess Love Boys podcast, which is off of the Armchair Expert. It's like a one-off in that umbrella, and he just talks about how being a little bit more. We don't celebrate short-term relationships. Like if something ends after 2 or 3 months, it's like, hey, why didn't that work out? What's the failures around it? Versus, I know Alex, you had mentioned about being like, I just want to be in that realm again of like having a significant other. Is it necessarily my wife? Who knows? But like, I just want that partner. And so I think so much that I see on social media is I'm dating for my partner, my husband, or my wife. Like it is 0 to 100 when it comes to dating. And sometimes, you know, there are different seasons in life that allow you to be like, hey, this summer, this is what I was aspiring for. I needed this connection, and we connected, and then going our separate ways. Like, how do you guys feel about that in the season of life that you're in right now, and where your past relationships have been?
Yeah, what do you think, Rob?
Well, I can jump in and just say, that I've never looked at a relationship as this potentially short-term thing. I've always looked at it as like, this is going to be my lifelong partner and the mother of my children, and we will build an empire together. And it's like, there is actually something pretty nice about just taking it one step at a time and just being like, you know what, I enjoy this person's company.
Yeah. Is that like when you plan the trips to New York, or at the music festivals when you
I'm not gonna look, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Like I go fast, and I've been trying really hard to go like slower, and I think it's working. I don't know.
You're doing great.
But I resonate with that a lot too. I travel a lot for work, and I find myself doing these habits of connecting with people, especially because social media connects us together so easily, and you find mutual connections, and the timing of, you know, like someone's up late night on the East Coast when it's like mountain time or West Coast, and you're able to talk and you build this relationship, and it's like, hey, come and visit, or meet me here and do this. And I think for me a little bit is that I've fallen into this, like, let me be that short-term guy that can, you know, whisk you away and have this fantasy and you think positively, and that I can't screw it up in the long run. Like the long relationships are the ones that are the biggest heartbreak and the ones that really mess you up. And I've just been in this realm of casual and comfortability of like, hey, let's have a weekend together where like we're not concerned about the future. And I almost like, I don't know if that's good or bad, but that's just like where I've fallen in consistency with.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something super deep there, if I'm like hearing correctly, which is basically like almost vacation relationships. Like if that's how people want to like think of it, you know, if you go on a vacation, you meet someone, you're like, they're great and you have a great time, but you obviously know like, okay, then they're going back to Tuscaloosa and you're going to Chicago or whatever. If that's happened for everybody. But I think something you're saying is like, there might be part of you that's almost hiding in that versus, you know, there's some like comfort in that.
Well, yeah, there's also like something extremely romantic about these like vacation weekends. Like they are very movie-esque. They are very like, oh my God, we've got 48 hours to just like make sweet, sweet love and travel and run around and like kiss like we're in high school. I mean, I remember I had a high school girlfriend that we ended up hooking up for the first time on like a Mexico trip. And I just remember we made out in this hot tub, and I was like, I'm in love with her.
Yeah.
Like they're like, this is it, you
Yeah.
know? And it was just very
Yeah.
romantic. It was Mexico. I was 17 or 18 years old. And like, yeah.
Well, and I don't want to take us off on a tangent because I do want to come back to what Jordan's saying,
Please.
but it's all kind of interrelated, which is, so you said like you're in love, right? And I learned kind of, I'm navigating my own relationship with love versus infatuation or excitement or deep like, because in my past relationship, and I'll only talk about my end of it. There's her end and my end. I'll only talk about my end. I really thought for a few months that I was being my like smartest, whatever, most logical self, but really I was just like a love bitten guy who was just like, and so I think that's something that I'm trying to navigate. And it's kind of related to what Jordan's saying, which is like, when is it real life love versus some like fantastical feeling or vacation or trip or strong just feeling?
Can I just say that can't both exist, and don't they exist? Like, isn't the precipice of a long-term relationship this like romantic weekend that happens, or am I just a romantic?
Well, you're the only one actually who's been in one. Like, we've been married, so we should defer to you.
Well, and I think there's also this the way that Dan Savage explains this in this episode is that long-term relationships are just people who consistently push through like different seasons of short term. It's like, hey, these 3 months are great. Want to keep I keep wanting to do this 3 month, and then it just builds over time. That's just, if you break it down that way and look at it. So yes, that you can definitely have both. And I think, going off of Rob's point of like those moments when you're like making out with a girlfriend in college and it was like rainy outside and you're like, this is magical. We're going to be telling our grandkids, like, so much so that I was on a date a couple weeks ago and we were like out dancing on the dance floor and we were about to kiss. And I paused because T-Pain Buy You a Drink was on. And I was like, is this how this is going to go? This is a first kiss moment. And then, but like, I couldn't not, and just kind of went with it. But those things play in your head a little bit of like importance. And then it just becomes a comical thing that you can then reference later on.
Okay. Going off what Jordan just said, how important to you guys is the first kiss?
Jordan?
I love the deflection always.
First, I'm going to drink the Shrek's pee.
Yeah. Drink some Shrek pee.
No, go.
Go Weber. But
answer your own question.
It's powerful. I think it's important. It doesn't end all be all, but like you kind of can tell from kissing how things are going to go from an intimacy standpoint.
Like immediately, I think a first kiss is like the barometer check for your potential as like a sexual passionate couple. And if things are clicking there, like sexuality is going to click.
Agreed.
Alex, what about you?
I mean, I just think I'm going to rewind like one step and just say, I think, I'm just such a big believer of, I think, the second what are you all laughing at? They're laughing at me, everybody.
Just talking about kissing.
Each time. And he's just like, you know what? I'm going to backtrack. This is like your second time. You're like, let's back this bus up a little bit. I want to talk about something.
Just avoiding any question.
Alex just has never kissed anyone. And he's just trying to like,
when you hug them and you hug them hold them.
When it's like a bag of sand,
Yeah. Their lips are just like bird lips, and they just like hurt. And they just, you bleed. So
what I was going to say, I think that right when you first see somebody, if your primal system is like, all right, this human creature, I like that human creature. You just know, I think instantly. And then I think, to your guys' point, like the chemistry of a kiss is very important of like, are we connected? But I don't like the story.
Are you outing yourself as a bad kisser right now?
So what you do is you lead teeth forward. You go teeth forward.
Webbs, are you like kind of insecure about your kissing ability? Like just a little bit?
Listen, everybody does it differently.
because I do agree with you that when you see someone that there can be that primal thing, but if there's no chemistry there when it actually comes to like being able to like kiss and be intimate that way, like you've definitely had that experience before, have you not?
Yeah, I mean, again, I just think there's so many. Listen, there's no rule book.
Oh my god!
I think I'm fine. I think I'm pretty good.
I'm sure you're great. I'm
I'm
you're
sure.
great.
No, do you guys kiss? What do you guys do?
Okay, all right. So I think a kiss is very important. I think a good kiss is like it's when you feel kind of that passionate connection. And I don't know if you felt that. Maybe you haven't.
I've had good kisses. If we've ever kissed, please write a review of this podcast referencing strictly the kiss.
Oh my god. Oh, that's
Please send voice note questions to at I am Alex Weber.
Yeah.
no. I mean, there's been bad kisses. I've experienced some bad kisses.
Sure.
I sometimes if I'm in a bad kiss situation in the internal monologue, it goes, oh no, like this is not good. Like no tricks I can pull out of my my hat to like make this sensual, because there's just like a blockade almost.
Yeah.
And then I like get into my head, and then I'm like, well, how do I, because I'm a sensual person, and like I'm like, okay, come on, like when is it gonna start? And sometimes it just doesn't. And then you're just like, all right, well, there's no fireworks then.
Absolutely.
I was going to ask. I don't.
No, please. We have to know. You
Please
can't.
ask.
I'm
You have to
tired.
ask.
I'm tired.
This is a no stops, no stopping the recording.
We have a pact.
Podcast. Yeah. And
How do you know when there's fireworks?
Oh, it's a great question, Alex. And God bless you. I
think I've had them, but
you
what's
haven't
it like,
had like
Rob?
a moment where it's like a little like, hey, this is like a little more magical than most. Like like
I don't. For me though, I don't know if it's been directly related to the kiss as much as like the overall experience of like, okay, I'm really into this one, like this person, and we're hitting it off, and I guess like the kiss to me is like part of that connection.
Okay. I'll describe it for me.
Yeah.
I feel like
Describe it with colors first, and then do a real answer.
So there's like blue whisks, but then there's like a jolt of red and hot pink, and maybe even some yellow in there. And you're just like, I mean, I can describe like my first kiss with Noelle. It was fucking fireworks. And we were literally dancing on a table in a living room. We'd gotten back from the bar. We were with all of our friends. And we were dancing. We're like 23. And I just remember like walking up to her and I'm like, oh my God, we're going to kiss. And then literally we started making out. And I shit you not, the room disappeared.
Yeah, I get that.
The room disappeared. I just remember kissing her and being like, holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I had kissed before and I had gotten butterflies before, but I'd never had like, holy shit moment kiss like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I mean, it was just kind of like after that, I was like, well, I'm going to call my mom and tell her that this is the woman I'm going to marry.
Yeah.
Like literally. And I don't know. In a way I've been like searching for those, which I don't think is fair, but like I also know like these like baseline like fireworks that are great, and I've experienced some amazing fireworks since, but yeah. How are the colors? Were those good?
No, you nailed it. I mean, one thing that I've been in love, and I guess what I was kind of being awkward about is I don't know if I've ever had like such a clean, definitive like whoa fireworks. But I definitely do agree with that's such a good barometer of, are you in love? Does the rest of the world melt away? Like, does nothing else matter outside of just you two being together?
And I would say using that word melt is like you almost, or at least for me, like you feel like you're melting into each other.
Yeah. Yeah,
Big
there's
man.
that connection point, and I do think that that comes in with, I mean, and not to be so hyper focused on like the kissing element, like there is elements of that that really connect you, and I guess a lot of the moments that I'm thinking of, music is involved, and I don't know if that plays a big impact for you or like situational, but a couple moments came to mind where yeah, like it wasn't T-Pain playing, but that definitely was a good kiss on that date. But yeah, just I think Rob, you explained it really great. That just kind of like the rest of the world kind of disappears a little bit.
Well, this kind of begs the question then. Okay, so say you're going out with someone and you really like them and you're getting along well, and you have a first kiss and there's no fireworks.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? Does that mean, okay, well, maybe you just need to get to know each other better and let it unfold? Or is that like a sign of, oh, wait, maybe we're not a fit? Like, is that something to listen to or not?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's
I
definitely
would
like
agree.
if I had a great time with them and like the chemistry, there's at least chemistry and intellectual, like it, like the conversation flowed, but the kiss just wasn't there. I was like, damn, that's a bummer. I'll give it one more try. And if it like isn't then at that second point, then it's like, are we just, it's kind of like trying to put a round peg in a square hole.
God, I was gonna say that.
Let's go.
Let's go. Episode 4 of the Still Single podcast.
Still single.
Weber, I feel like you're a little perplexed right now, and we didn't mean to like bring up, kissing and make you uncomfortable. Or is it just the
I'm okay.
fireworks? Are you okay?
There's so many different ways you can kiss. And I think I think I'm pretty good. But it's one of those things where how do you really know? I guess someone would tell you. Someone's told me.
I think you just know. Dude, you've gotten plenty of compliments in the bedroom and beyond. I know that. I've heard them. So
Whoa, what? Episode 4. I don't even know what to do with that statement.
well, I'm just look.
Okay.
I'm trying to
listen. Compliment received. Thanks, Rob. Thank you.
Look, I've never kissed you, man. I don't plan on kissing you. I don't know how good or bad of a kisser you are. I just know that I've felt fireworks before, and it's usually when you're kissing. And I think kissing is that first moment of, are we going to be like sensually connected? And I think that connection leads into, getting even more physical and having sex. And I feel like if there isn't that like passionate kiss, I don't know how you like get more passionate when you get into the bedroom.
Well, and I want to elevate this up and not be so focused on just like kissing so important and the intimacy and all that. And I think a big thing that we discussed about is like evolving and not just being like, hey, we've had sex before podcast, and talking like there's a discussion point that Esther Perel brings up in the sense that you can fall in love with a lot of people through your lifetime, but to start a family and create something together with another person is a totally different level of things. And Alex, you had mentioned like being in love before, but I think finding a person where you can start a family and have children with, or if it's not children, it's like have a farm together, or like, live in the city, do whatever, is a totally different approach to life.
Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, I feel like sometimes you'll like see things or read things that are like, love is not always romantic. Sometimes love is just like a Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. and you're rushing off. And I do truly think that that's obviously life is life, but I guess I don't want to be idealistic or romanticize it, but obviously not every moment's going to be warm and fuzzy. I think there's a lot of shades of love, and it might not always be like romantic or high octane or fireworks. I guess I'm just very mindful of contempt, and I've just seen in some relationships when I was young that in like family, extended family, like once you go into the land of contempt or bitterness or resentment, complacency too. I think complacency it can lead to all those too. I just think that's when you're like on the drifting away from each other path.
I would say the death to my relationships that haven't, gone the distance have been like resentment and lack of trust.
That one too
Well,
is
I keep bringing up that people have and me included when I say this, is that having difficult conversations is not something that people in our society are good at. To have those communications of, hey, I need this from you. These are my love languages, or this is what I'm going through right now. I'm dealing with this mental health issue or whatever it is. And, I agree with you, Rob. Like, it is usually trust or a lack of communication. And because of that, resentment builds. It's a very common thing in my relationships as well.
our generation's so interesting because obviously there's good and bad to the, like, our grandparents married someone in their town. It was usually at a very young age. I'm generalizing, but generally that's the case. We have obviously so many choices, which is amazing to find a partner. Obviously, it's also grass is always greener. People have trouble. No one wants to settle down. Everyone's distracted, all that. But I think one other interesting thing about our generation is like the languages of love. And we're all not, I'm generalizing, but there's some degree of like emotional intelligence if you have social media that you've just been exposed to. I would say that, I don't know. I'm curious. I mean, I hope that it helps relationships in our generation, but I don't know.
What are your top 2 love languages?
Yeah. I laugh because it's like mine are words of affirmation and acts of service, which basically is like, do things for me and tell me I'm great. But I think,
why are you dismissing that?
Well, it's the words of affirmation. I think I don't know. I don't need to unpack it, but I think I've just I know I've like had a lot of confidence things. And, so I think someone just offering that reassurance doesn't need to be every second, but just like, even it's more quality over quantity. If someone would just be like, hey, I really like you and I love spending time with you, like that, like refills my tank. And I'm like, oh, I'm good. Like we're good 100%. For a while. And the acts of service, I remember my past partner one time, it's not like doing things for me, like go pick up this and do this. It's more of like thoughtful effort. I really value effort. I think like that's just such a sign of you care about someone. And one time I was like stressed and doing all this stuff to get to, I had too many things. And one of the things on mine, it happened to be laundry. Again, I'm not like do my laundry, but I was like doing all these things to get ready for the trip. And she, without asking or telling me, just like cleaned the shirt that I wanted to take on the trip. And it just like was such a gift. It like gave me time. It was such a nice gesture. And so, yeah, that like really stuck with me.
Yeah. So own that. Like
Okay.
you were like very dismissive. And then you like said 2 examples that you're like, it filled my tank. I was through the moon.
Yeah.
And it's like,
yeah, no, those 2 for sure. I don't need gifts. Just tell me I'm great and do things. Yeah. Thoughtful effort.
Yeah. Mine are definitely words of affirmation and physical touch. And like words of affirmation probably comes from like an insecurity, but also that reassurance of just like, Rob, you're actually great. Because I mean, sometimes my inner monologue is, my self-talk is terrible. And my self-talk can be just like, you're a piece of shit, you're lazy, you don't work hard enough, you're a bad dad. Like
make the bed.
Make the bed. And then like, if I can just get like, hey, you're a great man. You're a great dad.
Yeah.
Like, you're really sexy. Your hairy shoulders are very sexy.
You're so tall.
You're so tall.
The tallest.
Like I mean, that can just fill my tank, as you said. And then physical touch, like, whew, like a good hug. Hi.
You're a hugger. You are a hugger.
I'm a hugger. You just, if you see me, if I'm a little, disgruntled, just hug the big guy.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Great.
What are yours, Jordan?
I am quality time and physical touch. So like going off of you, well, like puts me through, and it goes back to me. Like I go on trips and I'm 0 to 100 of like, hey, come on this camping trip, or hey, come do this like, road trip with me, and them saying yes and spending that time. Like I am through the moon on that, or like just saying like, I think time is the most precious gift that people can give. Like it's the most fleeting. And so I think to be present with someone and to be there and saying yes to you know, being in their presence is really important for me. And then that, of course, with that goes like physical touch. Yeah, I think just like, I don't know, like whether it's, you know, back rubs or just, I'm a bit, so this is a conversation that's come up a little bit, is that walking down the street, I don't like holding hands. I'm a like lock in pinkies. So
Mm.
like, I know that you're there, there's a connection point there, but there's a little more freedom, less sweaty hands and all that. But like my grandparents did, and I saw it, and it's just like, I think that's one of the things that I picked up off of them. But just those
Cute.
elements. But
No,
yeah,
that's
you
super
know,
adorable.
Cute.
yeah. Or like the playful, you tell a joke and they let, you know, like the ribbing on that kind of stuff. And so there's a lot of different things, but yeah, quality time and physical touch, top two for sure.
It's interesting because I don't know who said it, but like probably the same dude who wrote that book. But that's how we receive, and I think that's how we often show it, right? Is like what's important to us. We're like, I guess that's important to the other person, but it really is in an awesome way. They're almost like giving you the answers. They're like, hey, this is how I receive love. So it's like, oh, okay. Even though it's not important to me, let me demonstrate that because that's how you receive.
Well, I have a really terrible story that I like plays in my head very often. And I try to bring it up to just like make amends with it a little bit, is because gift giving is the lowest for me. And growing up, like I never really got a ton of like my parents gave me gifts and stuff like that. My dad was terrible at getting gifts. Like any gift that we got him, he returned. It was a really bizarre experience. But the thing that I'm saying is that with an ex-girlfriend, she got me a very expensive and thoughtful gift. And I opened it, and my first thought in my head is, how am I supposed to break up with her now? And because I don't know how to react to getting gifts, like I just, and I was 20, how old was I? I was 25 at the time. And yeah, like I hate that was my first thought. And it's terrible, but understanding it, you know, and through other relationships and understanding, communicating with them, like her big thing was gift giving. And so
Right.
to understand that and be like, okay, be aware that I need to, you know, get her gifts or do things like that. But that stands out in my head so much of like, that's terrible that was my first thought. And I'm aware of that.
I guess I'm noticing that some of my more successful relationships are when we kind of have similar love languages, because maybe it just like is easier for me to give, you know, words of affirmation or physical touch, because those are the things that I like. And it would be interesting for me to challenge myself in my next, you know, serious relationship to like, if they don't match up, to really like hone in on those love languages, because they really are like, I mean, Weber, like you said, it fills your tank, you know, and they're like little secret like assassin, you know, like CIA fucking tactics that we can just like do for our significant other and just like boop, 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 just like fill us back up. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's like, I don't know. You're just making me think of this. Like, I remember in my last relationship, I was so that career focused. And like, I think that's a commonality with all of us and probably a lot of people listening. I've also realized like, I don't know if that's ever going to change, meaning like there has to be a way to sustainably be going a mile a minute on career and like purpose while also leading a life, you know? But anyways, I was like, I hadn't dated anyone in like 2 or 3 years. And then in my last relationship, it literally felt like the only way I could put it was I was on this like road or this path, like trying to climb this mountain. And all it was like the dirt and the gravel and the path to try to get to the top of the mountain. And then all of a sudden these like walls like went down when I was like in love. And I was like, oh, okay. There's like a flower over there. There's a little like pool. There's a frog jumping in the pool. Like we can go have a picnic over there. I was like, oh, okay. I'm still climbing the mountain, but there's a whole lot more on this mountain. There's so much more of life here than just the like get there.
Well, I think love is, in my definition, is not this like thing you get. It's not like a top of the mountain thing. It's
Right.
literally, it is the hike. It is the journey. And it is doing that with a partner and doing that with someone. I think it's very exciting when you meet somebody and you go, whoa, this could be my partner in crime. Like I could hike with this person to whatever is at the top of my mountain. And that
Yeah.
person is going to bring their own perspective to the hike that is yours. I don't think it necessarily derails it by getting into a relationship, or at least in my experience, anytime I've been in a serious relationship, it's like propelled me forward.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and they talk about I saw a video about this where it's the traffic test is that if like after spending, a day with someone that it's like you're driving them home and you hit 2 hours of traffic, are you elated that you get these 2 more hours, or are you, and you guys make the most of it, or is it miserable and you're like, I need to get away from this person, or like, and I guess there is some introverted, extroverted elements that come with that too, but that's something to think about.
So tying this back to kind of the theme of this episode of like short-term relationships and long-term relationships, can you, in these short-term relationships, Jordan, can you get deep enough where you share things like this is my love language, or share like deeper kind of lifelong goals, or is it more surface because they are defined as more short-term?
No, I think it's important to connect with people and talk about, future goals and wants. And I think that's where you connect in a lot of different ways, and understanding if you're even compatible for the short term, is knowing that. I think like, some things can come up where you're like, oh, this might not be compatible. If someone wants kids versus not wanting kids, or things like that, that might be a little more difficult to overcome. But I think it's really important to open up and be vulnerable. And as we talk about that a lot here, I do think like with dating apps, for me, it just became very formulaic.
Yeah.
And just like with my questions and I was talking with a friend and I brought this up and I was just like, yeah, I had the same like opening line and hit them with these things, and hey, let me get your number this way. Hey, this is my opening line for this, and like keep things going and interesting and doing it. But it was somewhat of a script. And I know Alex, like, gives me a hard time about my wow, I can't believe I'm botching my own, my asking people what their 3 favorite fruits are. And it's more of a psychological thing versus their answers. But yeah, that does get like melded in together. But I think a lot of personality comes out of that. But
Wait. Take
it's
me
following
into
the
this
script.
three favorite fruits thing. How is it psychological?
I'm gonna head out.
he hates it so much. He hates it.
Well, he's such a fruit guy. He loves fruit.
I do love fruit.
Alex, what are your 3 favorite fruits?
No. Because I'm starting to see the appeal of the question, and I don't want to.
Love that. So it's a few things that I'll quickly go through. It is that, so in the middle of a conversation, as things are, especially when things are going well, it's just kind of like, hey, maybe a little lull, and it's like, hey, I have a really serious question to ask you. What are your 3 favorite fruits? And you can judge by their reaction, one side or the other, thinking that it was going to be something super intense. And then it's just like, oh, we're talking about fruit. Oh, I love fruit. Or, oh, and you can go down so many different avenues with it, but you're just bringing up like, how do you eat these fruits? Oh, you don't like strawberries because of X, Y, and Z reason. Oh, banana's my favorite fruit. And I thought Alex was literally leaving.
He was walking away too.
No. And so what you're doing is that, and then you're challenging, and then they're being defensive. So if they're like, I'm blueberries are number 1. It's like, really, blueberry? How do you eat them? I don't like blueberries baked. Do you like them? You're just learning more about people through a subject that isn't polarizing. And then you ask, because usually growing up, your parents laid out fruit. So it was like, oh, tell me about the fruit that your mom had at the house, or your dad laid out for you, and how did you eat it that way? And it just like built this rapport that happens over time. And that usually if something stands out, if there's a unique take that comes in, then there's like an inside joke that you can then bring up that stays kind of relevant and consistent. But what I will say that if you're talking about fruit, like 2 or 3 dates in, there's no longevity there because there's no diversification.
Yeah.
And when I find myself where it's like, we're only talking about fruit, like, it's like, okay, this is like literally just a little personality thing and we're supposed to move on. And if we stay on that, it's like, I usually get the, hey, we should just be friends text. And maybe they hate it just as much as Alex does. So,
well, I will say it is a very surface level conversation. It's like it's as surface as it can possibly get. Whereas like my typical thing, people sit down for a date with me and I'm like, I'm a widower. I've got a kid. I'm sober.
Do you like
wanna
baked blueberries?
You like baked blueberries? I am so vulnerable. I'm such an open book, and then I try and like make the woman feel comfortable sharing like deep,
Sure.
vulnerable
Yeah.
things. And there really is no judgment when they're sharing. But I have found myself, I'll occasionally, if there is a lull, just like you like bring in these kind of like surface things just to keep it playful and keep it fun.
Yeah, that's all it is.
I do. Now that you're saying this, I do. It's not like I intend to, so it's not like a line or anything like that. But I do find, similar to yours as like an insight into their life, I found that on dates, I'll ask, what would you be doing tonight or today if we weren't getting together? And I find that's like, I like that because the person's like, oh, well, I'd probably be reading a book or doing a movie marathon, or I'd probably go meet a friend, or I'd probably go work out, or I'm in a volleyball league and they actually have a game tonight, or I don't know. You just get like a little more glimpse slice of life into that human, Yeah. So I relate.
Yeah, I think it's important to keep it playful, and I've started to veer away from it because it does just get, once again, it just felt very formulaic, and I wasn't even remembering. And it's not because, hey, you answered strawberry, watermelon, kiwi, that you are this type of person. It is literally the banter that comes from the conversation. It is, hey, I'm going to push back and challenge you on this, and you immediately get defensive because you are owning these fruits, and this is.
Let's do a dry run. Let's do a dry run.
All right.
I mean, I know my boy Alex loves grapes. I think you need to tell us about your grape obsession.
I don't like that this question's going to be working. I've actually toned it. Fuck.
So now everyone knows a personality thing about you and grapes. And
somebody loves grapes.
I've toned it down because I don't know how healthy they are for you, and I've just been looking at health differently, and I don't like that this question's working.
What was alarming about it for you? What did you read that you thought it was healthy and then it wasn't?
Well, I think they can be, I'm just learning more about your gut and gut health, and grapes. Sometimes they put like waxes on them, and like, you gotta eat organic. See, where I take it though, is like, you're going to get me all spiraling into like, and the big government is killing you with GMOs.
Let's reel you back. We are not going.
Hold on. But
breathe, Alex, breathe.
You're
see
yelling
the light
into the mic. You're yelling.
Yeah. This is a safe space. We are literally just talking about fruit. He's like,
you gotta buy organic. I don't like doing it either, but you gotta.
Are you going? Remind me, is it green or red grapes that you're?
So I haven't had a grape in weeks, man. But watermelon, I'm a big water.
That's awesome. How are you cutting them?
How am I cutting them?
Yeah. Are you doing like the pizza slices, or do you cut it in half?
Sometimes, dude, I'll cut it just in half and go spoon down.
Just to the face. I love that.
Is it crush it?
Spoon
do you
down.
Care about the seedless part of it or no?
Yeah, I care about the seedless.
So you get seedless. You prioritize.
I get seedless.
He's so mad right now, but also wants to tell everyone about his fruit consumption. I love this for me right now.
Well, hold on. You're bringing up something that I think is important because, all right.
Tell me why this question is important. I love this.
Well, because you guys are reeling me back of like Weber's going into like, and I've learned, I don't listen. 6 months ago, I came in real hot with like, in 5 minutes, I would basically ask someone, what do you think about what's going on in the world? But here's the thing. And it's almost like Rob sharing his history. There's something to be said for like, here's who I am and what I'm about. And if you're not about it, or you at least can't meet me and be open-minded, like you don't need to be about what I'm about, but if you can't be open-minded or respectful that I feel certain things, or I've gone through certain things, or this is my truth, then it's kind of like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
And because of how polarizing the world is, granted, I have in the next 6 months learned like, okay, maybe you don't need to go first date with some of this stuff because everything is just so heated nowadays. But and I don't even mean, obviously I'm talking now kind of about like stuff going on in the world, whatever that is. Like there's a new thing every week, but whatever that is for you, whether that's Rob and his journey or Jordan, maybe it's that you travel a ton or whatever, you know, you listening, whatever maybe your thing is that's important to you that like people either may be about or not about. I think there's something to be said for sooner than later sharing that.
Well, you want to find commonalities. Like you want to find commonalities in your world perspective, in your POV on like small things and large
Right.
things. And I think that when you find those commonalities, you're like internally you perk up a little bit and you're like, oh, like that's exciting. That's a little match there. Like we both like that. We're both into this.
And also,
And
like, what if? I don't mean to interrupt, but what if someone like Rob was like, "You're on the first date," and they're like, "Oh, I don't want any kids," or like,
I'd
you
be
know,
like, hi, I have a kid.
right? Well, and that's like kind of, or like if Jordan, they were like, "I only, you know, I really want to date someone who's like super stable, 9 to 5, really reliable, predictable."
Deuces.
J Town's Audi.
No,
So
I think that
Well, I mean, how do you feel about that? We've talked about this before offline about being like a wild card.
yeah, it's actually a deep insecurity. A girl that I really liked, this is about a year ago. She ended things and it was basically because like my career, I travel a lot and I'm basically not, hey, 3 weeks from now on that Tuesday at 7 p.m., let's have a dinner reservation. And I was like, that's not
Totally.
really how I can lead my life right now. And that actually really hurt. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
dude, like honestly, that's kind of her projecting onto you of like what she wants
Yeah.
and what she needs. And I think that like my exes, their needs are their needs just as my needs are my needs.
Yeah.
And it's like I can't kind of change, you can only mold someone to somebody so much. But it's like if you were to meet a woman and she was like, Weber, I don't like that you're speaking and I don't like your position on these certain things. You'd be like, well, this is my position. This is who I am. And like, this
Yeah.
isn't probably a long-term fit. So I think, I don't know. I mean, in my current season of dating, I'm just like finally in a place where I'm just like, there are just so many different people out there. Like there's just so many different amazing people out there. And, you know, somebody's gonna come along and just be like, I fucking love you and Leia. Like I want to eat you guys up. I love the story. I love it all. And I believe that. And I think there was a real worry. And there still is sometimes it creeps in, but I don't know. I think first dates, like there's certain topics that I tend to go into pretty quickly, but overall it's like a vibe, like the initial vibe check of just like, are you attracted to each other? Check, like that's boom. And then I kind of go into vulnerability city. I go pretty vulnerable.
Vulnerable town. Vulnerability junkies.
Vulnerability junkies. I wanted to read, Renee sent in her question. I thought I would just read it and then we could react to it.
Great. Do you want to do an accent or something? Do you want to test out?
Oh, Renee. Hi guys, it's me, Renee. I've listened to your 2 episodes of Still Single. Couldn't add Jordan to the chat. And as a 39-year-old female, I have to say, I love listening to it. It gives me insight on the male mentality. I wanted to write to you because on the last episode, one of the you mentioned.
Clarify, Rob's not making fun of Renee.
No, Renee.
Correct. We're just we're just trying out accents.
Just an accent.
She sounds like we're just doing an accent. Renee, you're lovely. I don't even know what you sound like. But
Thank you so
sound
much
like
for your question.
this. Yeah.
What if it was also, if you submit a question, please know we won't always do accents, and just please submit.
I wanted to write to you because on the last episode, one of you mentioned that you've made some amends with some exes. Hi. And I only wish more men were doing the work in doing this. I have exes that I would like answers as to really why things ended. Because when you're a teenager in your early 20s, guys would just break it off without any real good reason. I get that sometimes guys just know it isn't right, but the feeling of not being enough for them still lingers inside, and some closure, I think, would truly help now that we are all adults. So thank you guys for being for doing this podcast and being vulnerable.
You really settled into the accent in that last 10 seconds. You really settled.
Renee, first of all, thank you so much for sending in this question. And again, I was not making fun of you. I was really just kind of elevating the beautiful note that you sent to us. So thank you. Yeah, so Renee, I have been making amends. I was the amends junkie, and it's I don't know how I necessarily feel about it. I think it's been coming from a place of like there's been some guilt and shame with some breakups and just wanting to bury the hatchet kind of thing. But I'm curious. I know Jordan, you were about to say something of just like,
Well, I think making amends and having like breaking something off are two different things. A little bit of the making for me, a lot of times, like there's one act, like the Voldemort of all Voldemort exes, and like the amount of times that I had wanted to grab a coffee with her, or just like reach, like it felt. I really focused on what my intentions are. What was I trying like it, and it consistently felt very selfish. And each time I talk to guy friends who are like, I'm gonna reach out to an ex or I want to do this, and I'm like, okay, but let's think about what your intentions are. And it is often my concern there is that it's selfish and you don't know where they're at in their grieving process or where they are in getting over in this situation. But if you have intentions and it's important to you, then like by all means go and do it. And like maybe I am holding myself back from having a conversation or two. Like I said, having difficult conversations is tough. And as a society, it is tough where we've just kind of generalized and accepted that ghosting is a thing, which is terrible with like the internet and all that. And so there have been times where things have ended and it like got ghosted, or even they're like they send me a message of like, hey, let's just be friends, and I'm half tempted to be like, can you tell me what it was? Am I doing something that I'm not aware of? And it's like, am I am I brave enough? Am I big enough to get that feedback? Do I actually want that feedback, or is it better for me to be somewhat ignorant and just work on myself to be better moving forward?
Yeah. No, it's a good point, man. I mean, well, one thing, the word that stuck out with me of what Renee said was closure. And like,
closure.
in my last, yeah, you nailed it. You nailed it. In my last relationship, man, I did not have closure, even though I was the one who I guess ended things. I really didn't. And then we saw each other like 11 months later and we had like a nice hug and we had like a good talk. We ran into each other randomly. And I was like, after that, I was like, oh, I have closure. And then though we talked too many times after and reopened it, and then we don't have closure anymore. So I think it's like, I don't know. I think closure is it's peace, right? It's like peace and it's clarity. And you're like, okay, this is why things are how they are. I see it. I understand it. I can accept it and I can move forward. And to the antithesis of that is ghosting, which we've all been ghosted. I'm sure we've all ghosted people as well. It's horrible because you're giving them no closure or us no closure. And worse, you're activating all these what ifs, which naturally are like our worst insecurities. What if this thing, they see this part of me that no one can accept, So yeah.
Yeah, I think I think that just is how it works with relationships. Some relationships get closure, and then there's other times where it's like you're just always going to have the but why? But why? Tell me this. And kind of once you accept the fact that there's no answer that they can give you that will satisfy that, I think it has to come, as long as there's communication there, I think you can get that closure. But that Alex, you bring up a point of my concern is like, reopening essentially Pandora's box of like, hey, we had a really great time and now we feel comfortable. So like, I'm thinking about her 2 nights later. So I'm going to text her because we had such a nice time and we're good now. And then it just snowballs from there because maybe there wasn't closure, as you had mentioned.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess going back to Renee's initial thought of just like it seems like maybe she was blindsided or ghosted by some of the breakups. And I would say that it's okay to reach out to an ex for clarity. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. In my experience, making amends, like, I just kind of reached out of like, hey, I would really like to make amends. There were certain things that I wasn't proud of, and I apologize. And if you're open for a coffee or a phone call, like, that's it. And truly, like, I don't want to say that it's kind of selfish doing it, but you know, when I do hear you guys saying like, well, then you're kind of resetting your ex or like not understanding like where they're at in their journey, I guess you have to like trust the sense that you have. Like, is it too soon to reach out or is it not? But overall, I think making amends is that piece. And I do think I think the majority of relationships eventually at some time, it could be 10 months after you break up, it could be 10 years. Like eventually there is the possibility for peace and amends to pretty much any relationship.
And I think also like you did it in a respectful way, which is that, you know, say the individual doesn't respond, that's their decision and you got to just, okay.
Right. You got to live with that and not
which in essence, you're also opening up a bit of rawness or vulnerability of like you extended something very heartfelt and open and then they didn't respond. And it's just something to be mindful of. Yeah.
I mean, dude, in this last breakup that I've been going through, like I've read so much internet stuff about like what to do with breakups and like what not to do. And, you know, there is the total truth of like someone could reach out with a heartfelt note and then they just read that and go, like whatever, and just like,
yeah. And I think it also matters on the day too. Like how many times have you read a quote from the internet and you like throw it to the side and then another day it pops up and you're like, so true, man, this hits so, like, you know, timing is everything when it comes down to it.
Well, guys, I feel like today we really settled in. It was a different kind of episode. How would you describe the episode today, guys?
That was great. I thought we really hit our stride. It took us a minute. I'm glad we have about 45 minutes of stuff that just directly going to go into the trash. But once we just, you know, a little warming up. Yeah.
We're going to have to do like a warm up.
I think we do need to do a warm up. And guys, like it's really helpful when you send us questions. It kind of fuels the conversation. So if there's any burning questions you have, like just DM one of us at Single Girl Dad, at I'm Alex Weber, at Jordan Kahana. We really appreciate your earballs and listening to this fun podcast. And we'll be back next week. So hit that subscribe button.
Leave a review.
5 stars on Apple Podcasts, please. Send more messages in so I can do more silly accents.
See you guys next week.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye. No, you hang up.